The command center erupted into chaos as alarms screamed through every corridor of the Global Defense Network headquarters. General Patricia Hammond stood frozen before the massive display screen, her coffee mug slipping from her fingers, shattering on the polished floor. Nobody noticed. Every eye in the room was locked on the impossible sight above. 17 ships hung in Earth's orbit, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering that made humanity's most advanced spacecraft look like Stone Age tools. They were elegant and terrifying, shaped like crystalline flowers with petals that seemed to pulse with inner light. The largest vessel sat at the center, easily 3 times the size of the International Space Station, radiating an otherworldly authority. Captain Derek Stone pushed through the crowd of panicking officers, his jaw set in the grim expression that had earned him the nickname Ice in his 20 years of military service. He had faced enemy fire in 6 different conflicts, had stared down terrorists and warlords without flinching, but this was different. This was first contact, and it was happening on his watch. "Status report," Derek barked, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. A young technician stumbled over his words. "Sir, they appeared without warning. No propulsion signatures, no heat trails, nothing. They just materialized in orbit 20 minutes ago." General Hammond finally found her voice. "Have they attempted communication?" "Yes, ma'am. On every frequency." "We have. The message is the same in every Earth language simultaneously." The technician's hands shook as he pulled up the audio file. "They're asking for someone specific." The voice that filled the command center was unlike anything Derek had ever heard. It was feminine, musical, yet carried an undeniable weight of power and authority. The words were crystal clear, spoken in perfect English, with an accent that somehow sounded both ancient and timeless. "People of Earth, I am Queen Nisara of the Zainari Empire. We come in peace and with purpose. For 3,000 cycles, we have searched the stars for the one whose soul resonates with mine. Our ancient texts speak of a bond that transcends species and space, a connection written in the fabric of the universe itself. My seers have confirmed that my destined mate walks upon your world. I request immediate audience with your leaders to discuss this matter of cosmic importance. We mean no harm, but we will not leave without him." Silence fell over the command center like a heavy blanket. Derek felt his heart hammering against his ribs. Him. She had said him. Somewhere on Earth, there was a man this alien queen believed was her soulmate, and she had brought 17 warships to find him. "This is insane," muttered Lieutenant Jennifer Cross from her station. "She can't just show up and demand we hand over some random person." General Hammond's face had gone pale. "Get me the president. Get me the UN. Get me every world leader we can reach in the next 5 minutes." She turned to Derek. "Captain Stone, assemble your team. If this goes sideways, we need to be ready for anything." Derek nodded sharply and headed for the door. But something made him pause. A strange sensation rippled through his chest, like a tuning fork had been struck somewhere deep inside him. He pressed a hand to his sternum, frowning. Probably just stress. This was the most intense situation humanity had ever faced. The next 6 hours were a blur of emergency meetings, shouting politicians, and mounting global panic. The media had gotten hold of the story within minutes, and now every screen on Earth showed the alien fleet hanging above like beautiful, terrifying ornaments. Religious leaders called it divine judgment. Scientists scrambled to study every scrap of data. Military forces worldwide went to highest alert. Derek stood in the ER briefing room as world leaders argued via holographic projection. The President of the United States wanted to evacuate major cities. The Chinese premier demanded they attempt to shoot down the vessels. The European Union called for peaceful negotiation. Meanwhile, Queen Nisara waited in orbit with the patience of someone who had crossed galaxies and could certainly wait a few more hours for humans to stop bickering. "We need to respond," Ambassador Claire Mitchell insisted, her diplomatic training barely keeping her voice steady. "Every minute we delay could be interpreted as hostility." "And how exactly do we respond to this?" General Hammond shot back. "Do we just announce a global manhunt for this Queen's supposed soulmate? Run DNA tests on every man on Earth? This is madness." Dr. Robert Finch, the world's leading xenobiologist, despite having studied exactly 0 actual aliens until today, cleared his throat nervously. "Actually, according to the data packets they've transmitted, the Zainari have a specific method for identifying compatible souls. It involves some kind of resonance technology. They're requesting permission to scan the population, starting with those in positions of leadership and military service." Derek felt that strange sensation in his chest again, stronger this time. He rubbed at it absently, trying to focus on the conversation. Something felt off, like static electricity building before a lightning strike. "Absolutely not," snapped General Hammond. "We're not letting them scan our people with unknown technology. For all we know, it's a weapon." The main screen flickered, and suddenly it was not showing the alien ships anymore. Instead, a face appeared. Derek's breath caught in his throat. Queen Isara was breathtaking in a way that transcended human standards of beauty. Her skin held an iridescent quality, shifting between shades of pearl and soft violet. Her eyes were large and luminous, colored like deep amber with flecks of gold that seemed to swirl and dance. She had high, elegant cheekbones and features that were delicate yet strong. Her hair, if it could be called that, flowed around her head like silk ribbons in water, deep purple shot through with silver threads. She wore robes that seemed to be made of living light. "Forgive my intrusion into your communications," she said, her voice filled with barely contained emotion. "But I can wait no longer. The resonance grows stronger with each passing moment. He is close. He is here, in this very building." Every person in the room instinctively looked at each other with suspicion and wonder. Derek felt his heart racing. Now, that sensation in his chest building to an almost painful intensity. Queen Isara's eyes seemed to look directly through the screen, searching. "I feel you," she whispered. "After so long, I finally feel you. Please, my destined one, reveal yourself. Complete the bond that was written in starlight before either of our worlds existed." The room erupted into chaos again, but Derek barely heard it. He was staring at the screen, at those impossible amber eyes, and feeling something fundamental shift in his understanding of reality. The sensation in his chest had become a pull, an undeniable magnetic force, drawing him toward the image on the screen. This could not be happening. It was impossible. He was a soldier, a practical man who dealt in facts and strategy, not cosmic destiny and alien soulmates. Yet every instinct he possessed was screaming that something profound and irrevocable was occurring. General Hammond was shouting orders. Ambassador Mitchell was trying to draft a response, and Dr. Finch was frantically taking notes. Through it all, Derek stood motionless, locked in a silent moment with the alien queen, whose eyes promised that nothing would ever be the same again. The resonance chamber hummed with energy that made Derek's teeth ache. He stood in the center of a circular platform aboard the Zainari flagship, surrounded by crystalline pillars that pulsed with soft light. 24 hours ago, he had been a decorated military officer with a clear understanding of his place in the universe. Now he was potentially the mate of an alien queen, and the entire world was watching. General Hammond had fought against this. So had the President, the Joint Chiefs, and half the United Nations Security Council. But Queen Isara had been immovable, polite but absolutely firm. The resonance test would happen, and it would start with those who had been present during her first communication. When Derek volunteered to go first, He told himself it was to protect his subordinates from unknown alien technology. Deep down, he knew it was because that pull in his chest had become impossible to ignore. The Zainari ship's interior defied human engineering principles. Corridors curved in ways that seemed to shift perspective, and rooms existed in spaces that should not have been able to fit within the vessel's exterior dimensions. Dr. Finch, who had accompanied Derek along with Ambassador Mitchell and a security team, kept muttering calculations under his breath, and looking slightly nauseated. Queen Thesara entered the chamber, and Derek felt the air itself change. She moved with fluid grace, her light-woven robes trailing behind her like captured starlight. Up close, she was even more striking than on the view screen. She stood perhaps 5.5 feet tall, delicate in frame, but radiating an authority that filled the massive space. Her attendants followed at a respectful distance, beings of similar ethereal beauty who watched the proceedings with barely concealed excitement. "Captain Stone," Thesara said, and hearing his name in that musical voice sent a shiver down his spine. "Thank you for your courage in facing the unknown. What we are about to do will harm you in no way. The resonance simply reveals what already exists." Derek nodded stiffly, every inch the professional soldier, despite his racing heart. "I understand, Your Majesty. Proceed." Thesara's lips curved in a small smile. "So formal. It is not necessary, though I appreciate the respect." She stepped onto the platform with him, close enough that he could see the swirling patterns of gold in her amber eyes. "Are you afraid? Concerned?" Derek corrected automatically. "Fear is just data informing tactical decisions." Her smile widened, revealing teeth that were surprisingly human despite their perfect uniformity and pearl-like sheen. "Spoken like a true warrior. My people value such strength." She raised her hands, palms facing him but not touching. "Focus on the sensation in your chest, the pull you have been feeling since you first heard my voice. Do not fight it." The crystalline pillars began to glow brighter, and a low harmonic tone filled the chamber. Derek felt the resonance build, that tuning fork sensation becoming a symphony. Energy swirled around them, visible as streams of light in shades of blue and violet. Thesara closed her eyes, her expression peaceful and expectant. Then it happened. The light converged between them, forming patterns that looked almost like circuitry made of pure energy. The patterns flowed from the pillars, through Thesara, and connected to Derek's chest directly over his heart. The sensation was overwhelming, not painful, but intensely intimate, as if someone had touched the very core of his being. Derek gasped, his soldier's composure cracking. Images flooded his mind. He saw Thesara as a young princess learning to rule, felt her loneliness as centuries passed while she searched for something she could not name, experienced her hope when the ancient seers confirmed her soulmate existed somewhere among the stars. And woven through it all was a golden thread of connection, a bond that sang with recognition and rightness. The light between them blazed brilliant white, so bright that everyone watching had to shield their eyes. When it faded, Derek stood trembling, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Thesara's eyes were open now, wide and filled with tears that sparkled like liquid diamonds as they traced down her iridescent cheeks. "It is you," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "After 3,000 years of searching, it is truly you." Ambassador Mitchell stepped forward, her diplomatic training warring with obvious shock. What just happened? What did the test show? An elderly Zenari with silver-threaded hair and robes marked with symbols of rank moved to the platform's edge. "The resonance is perfect. Complete soul alignment across all frequency bands. This occurs perhaps once in a trillion pairings. Captain Derek Stone of Earth is indeed Queen Thesara's destined mate." The chamber erupted into activity. The Zenari attendants began what looked like a celebration. their musical language rising in joyful harmonies. Dr. Finch was frantically recording everything on his tablet. The human security team looked torn between amazement and concern. Ambassador. Mitchell was already composing messages to Earth's leaders in her head, trying to figure out how to explain this cosmic impossibility. Derek barely processed any of it. He was locked in place, staring at the Sara, feeling the bond between them. Like a living thing. It was not controlling him or forcing emotion. Instead, it was like a door had opened in his soul, revealing a space that had always been empty, waiting for exactly this. For exactly her. I do not understand this, he said quietly, his voice rough. I am just a soldier. Why would the universe bond me to a queen who rules an empire spanning dozens of worlds? The Sara reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away if he chose. When he did not move, she placed her hand over his heart, directly where the bond had anchored. Her touch was warm, and sent that resonance singing through him again. The bond does not choose based on titles or status, Derek Stone. It recognizes the truth of souls. You possess what I need, and I possess what you need. Together, we are more than either could be alone. That is the purpose of the destined bond. And if I refuse? Derek asked, not because he wanted to, but because he needed to know if this was truly choice or cosmic compulsion. Pain flickered across the Sara's face, but she answered honestly. Then I returned to my empire alone, as I have been for 3,000 years. The bond cannot be forced. It can only be accepted by both parties freely. But know this. She looked up at him with those ancient luminous eyes. I have waited centuries. For you, I have ruled worlds, commanded fleets, shaped the fate of billions. Yet standing here, feeling this connection, I know that none of it mattered compared to finding you. I offer you not just my crown, but my heart. I offer partnership, not servitude. I offer a love written in the stars themselves. Derek's mind raced through tactical scenarios, political implications, and personal concerns. He thought of his career, his life on Earth, everything familiar and safe. Then he thought of the emptiness he had always carried, the sense that something fundamental was missing even when he stood surrounded by comrades and covered in glory. That emptiness was gone now, filled by the golden warmth of connection to this impossible, beautiful being. How does this work? He asked, his practical nature asserting itself, even as his heart made its decision. Your culture, my humanity. The political complications alone could start wars. The Sara's expression softened with understanding and hope. We learn together. The Zainari have protocols for such bonds, rituals, and processes developed over millions of years. You would not be expected to abandon your humanity or your people. Earth would become part of the empire as a sovereign partner, not a conquered territory. Your role would be defined by you, not by ancient traditions that do not account for your unique nature. Dr. Finch cleared his throat nervously. Captain Stone, I feel obligated to mention that we know almost nothing about Zainari biology, culture, or long-term intentions. This decision has implications far beyond personal choice. I am aware, Doctor, Derek replied, not taking his eyes off the Sara. But I am also aware that refusing could lead to diplomatic disaster, and I am aware. He paused, finally admitting the truth to himself and everyone listening, that this feels more right than anything I have ever experienced. Ambassador Mitchell stepped closer, her voice low and urgent. Derek, you need to think about this carefully. Once you accept this bond publicly, there is no going back. You will be tied to alien royalty, to politics and power structures we do not understand. Your life will never be private again. Are you truly prepared for that? Derek finally broke eye contact with the Sara to look at the ambassador. Ma'am, with respect, I have spent 20 years in service to humanity. I have sacrificed privacy, safety, and normalcy for the greater good more times than I can count. If accepting this bond means Earth gains a powerful ally and avoids a potential conflict, then the choice is clear. If it also means finding something I did not even know I was missing, then perhaps the universe is kinder than I believed. He turned back to the Sara, and for the first time since entering the chamber, he allowed himself to truly smile. It felt strange on his usually stern face, but natural in this moment. Your Majesty, I am just a soldier from a young world. I cannot promise I will be a good consort or understand your customs quickly. But if you are willing to be patient with me, I accept the bond. I accept you. The Sara's face transformed with joy so pure and radiant that several of the human observers actually took a step back from the sheer force of it. She rose on her toes, bringing herself closer to his height, and placed both hands on either side of his face. Her touch was gentle and electric. Then let it be witnessed and recorded, she said, her voice ringing with formal authority even as it trembled with emotion. I, the Sara, Queen of the Zainari Empire, Keeper of the Seven Stars, Guardian of the Ancient Flame, accept Derek Stone of Earth as my destined mate and true bonded partner. Let our souls be joined, our fates intertwined, our futures shared across all the days that remain to us. The crystalline pillars blazed with light again, but this time it felt different, celebratory, affirming. The energy wrapped around Derek and the Sara like a blessing, sealing what had been spoken. Derek felt the bond solidify, not as a chain, but as a foundation, steady and unshakable. When the light faded, the Sara pulled his face down and kissed him. It was soft and brief, mindful of their audience, but it carried the promise of everything to come. Derek, who had kissed his share of women in his 42 years, felt like he was experiencing it for the first time. Everything else had been practice. This was the real thing. When they parted, the chamber erupted in celebration from the Zinari and shocked silence from the humans. Derek stood with an alien queen's hand still on his face, his entire future rewritten in a matter of hours, and found that he had no regrets whatsoever. Well, he said with a hint of his dry humor returning, this is going to require one hell of an after-action report. The Asara laughed, the sound like music, and Derek realized he would happily spend lifetimes learning to create that sound again and again. 3 weeks had passed since the resonance ceremony, and Earth was still adjusting to its new reality. Derek Stone, formerly a decorated but relatively unknown military captain, was now the most famous human alive. The media had dubbed him everything from the star-crossed soldier to Earth's royal consort, though he preferred his actual title that the Sara had given him, first bond of the Zainari Empire and ambassador of humanity. He stood on the observation deck of the Celestial Harmony, the flagship that had become his temporary home, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The view never got old. Neither did the presence of the Sara, who approached from behind with footsteps so light he only knew she was there because the bond hummed with awareness of her proximity. You are troubled, she said softly, coming to stand beside him. She had learned to read human body language with remarkable speed, though Derek suspected the bond gave her additional insight into his emotional state. Not troubled, Derek replied, reaching out to take her hand. The simple gesture still sent warmth cascading through the bond between them. Just thoughtful. General Hammond sent another message today. They want me back on Earth for a security briefing. The Sara's fingers intertwined with his, her 3-fingered grip surprisingly strong. The Zinari had hands similar to humans, but with one fewer finger, something Derek had barely noticed anymore. You miss your world. This is natural. You have been away from your home for the first extended period since we bonded. It's more complicated than homesickness, Derek admitted. He turned to face her fully, taking in the sight of her in casual. Zainari robes of deep blue that made her skin seem to glow. There are factions on Earth that see our bond as a threat. They believe you'll use me to manipulate humanity, or that I've somehow been compromised. General Hammond doesn't share those views, but she has to address them. Desara's expression grew troubled, the gold flecks in her amber eyes swirling more rapidly. I have made it clear in every diplomatic communication that Earth maintains full sovereignty. The bond changes nothing politically unless both our peoples wish it to. I know that. Hammond knows that. But fear doesn't listen to logic. Derek squeezed her hand gently, which is why I think we need to make a gesture. Something that shows Earth we're partners, not conqueror and conquered. Before the Sara could respond, a chiming alert echoed through the observation deck. A holographic display materialized, showing the face of Princess Mira, the Sara's daughter from a previous political union centuries ago. The young princess looked distressed, her usually composed features twisted with worry. Mother, we have a situation. The Krell Dominion has launched an assault on our mining colony in the Tertius system. They claim we violated their territorial boundaries, but the colony has been there for 80 years. This is a clear act of aggression. Derek felt the Sara's hand tighten in his, as her entire demeanor shifted from loving partner to commanding. Monarch in an instant. Casualties? 17 wounded, 3 critical. The colony's shields are holding, but they're calling for military support. The nearest battle group is 6 hours away. The Sara's jaw set with determination. Redirect them. Immediately. And prepare my personal guard. I will not allow the Krell to think they can strike at Zainari citizens without consequence. Derek's tactical mind was already analyzing the situation. What's the Krell's military strength? What kind of force did they send? Myra glanced at him, and Derek saw respect in her eyes. The princess had been cautious about him at first, protective of her mother, but she had warmed considerably over the past weeks. 3 heavy cruisers and a dozen support craft. Standard Krell raiding formation. They're brutal, but not particularly strategic. An idea formed in Derek's mind, bold and potentially dangerous, but exactly the kind of gesture he had just been discussing. The Sara, what if Earth helped? Our forces have been on high alert since first contact. This could be an opportunity to show we're genuine allies. The Sara looked at him sharply, surprise evident. Derek, I cannot ask humanity to fight for Zainari interests. You have only just accepted our existence. To throw your people into an interstellar conflict would be unconscionable. You're not asking. I'm offering. Derek pulled up his personal communication device and started composing a message to General Hammond. Think about it. Earth has been terrified that we're vulnerable in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations. This is a chance to prove we can contribute, that we're not just dependents under Zainari protection. It changes the entire dynamic of our relationship. Princess Mira leaned forward in the holographic display. Father Derek makes a strategic point. If Earth participates in defending Zainari territory, it establishes them as active partners rather than passive protectorates. The political implications across the Empire would be significant. Derek noticed the title Myra had used and felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the bond. She had started calling him Father Derek last week, a Zainari term of respect for a bonded parent figure, even though she was technically over 200 years old. It had surprised him how much he appreciated it. The Sara was quiet for a long moment, her tactical mind clearly warring with her protective instincts. Finally, she nodded. Very well. But this must be a joint operation, not Earth rushing in unprepared. And Derek. She turned to him, her expression fierce. You are not going into combat. I have only just found you. I will not risk losing you to Krell weapons. Derek opened his mouth to argue, saw the look in her eyes, and wisely reconsidered. Agreed. I'll coordinate from here. But Thesara, Earth's forces need Zainari tactical support. We've never fought in space before. This has to be a true partnership. The next 4 hours were a whirlwind of activity. General Hammond, after recovering from her shock at Derek's proposal, brought the idea to the President and the UN Security Council. The debate was fierce, but ultimately brief. Earth's military was eager to prove itself, and the opportunity to show the galaxy that humanity was not defenseless was too valuable to pass up. Derek found himself in the Celestial Harmony's command center, surrounded by Zainari officers who had initially been skeptical of the human in their midst, but now worked with him seamlessly. Lieutenant James Park, Derek's oldest friend, and someone who had volunteered to join him in space, coordinated with Earth's assembled fleet from a neighboring console. "This is insane," James muttered, pulling up tactical displays. 6 months ago, our biggest concern was regional conflicts. Now we're coordinating an interstellar defense operation. "Welcome to the future," Derek replied with a grim smile. He studied the holographic battlefield, watching as Earth's hastily assembled task force moved into position. 12 of humanity's most advanced warships, led by the carrier Indomitable, looked pitifully small compared to the massive Zainari vessels, but they were there. That mattered. Thesara stood at the center of the command deck, every inch the warrior. Queen. She had changed into ceremonial armor that looked like it was forged from solidified starlight, form-fitting and elegant, yet clearly functional. Her voice rang out with absolute authority as she directed the combined fleet. "Zainari Battle Group, Crimson Dawn, you will form the primary engagement line. Earth forces will take flanking positions here and here." She highlighted areas on the tactical display. "Your role is to cut off any Krell retreat and provide support fire. Do not engage directly unless absolutely necessary. You lack shields capable of withstanding Krell plasma weapons." General Hammond's voice crackled over the communication channel from the Indomitable. "Understood, Your Majesty. Earth forces moving into position. And Captain Stone, if you're listening, you better be staying on that flagship like you promised." Derek keyed his microphone with a slight smile. "Affirmative, General. I learned a long time ago not to argue with the women in my life." Thesara glanced at him, amusement flickering across her face despite the tense situation. Through the bond, he felt her fear for the colony, her anger at the Krell aggression, and underneath it all, her fierce love for him. It was still overwhelming sometimes, feeling her emotions as clearly as his own. The Krell ships appeared on sensors, right where Zainari intelligence predicted. They were ugly vessels, all sharp angles, and aggressive weapon ports, built for intimidation and destruction rather than elegance. They had ignored the Zainari warnings to withdraw and were continuing their assault on the mining colony. "All forces engage," Thesara commanded. The battle was brief but intense. Zainari weapons technology was centuries ahead of anything the Krell possessed, and their tactics were flawless. The Crimson Dawn battle group tore through the Krell formation with precise, devastating strikes. Earth's forces performed admirably in their support role, their missiles and railgun fire catching several Krell ships off guard when they tried to flank the Zainari. Line. Derek watched with professional appreciation as the Indomitable's fighter wing executed a textbook attack run that would have made any Earth military academy proud. The Krell, caught between superior Zainari firepower and unexpectedly competent human forces, broke formation and attempted to retreat. "Do not let them escape," Thesara ordered coldly. "They attacked Zainari citizens. There must be consequences." The combined fleet pursued, and within 20 minutes, the remaining Krell ships were either destroyed or surrendered. The colony was safe, casualties had been minimal, And Earth had just participated in its first interstellar military operation. The command center erupted in controlled celebration. Zenari officers exchanged satisfied nods, and Derek could hear, cheering over the Earth fleet channels. James clapped him on the shoulder, grinning widely. Isara turned to Derek, and he saw pride shining in her eyes. Your people fought well, better than well. They fought with courage and skill that impressed even my most veteran commanders. They fought for their ally, Derek replied, moving to stand beside her, and for the future we're building together. Later, that night, after the diplomatic reports had been filed and the celebration feasts concluded, Derek found Isara alone in their shared quarters. The bond thrummed with her exhaustion and relief. She had removed her armor and stood in simple robes, looking out at the stars through the massive viewport. You were right, she said quietly as he approached, about Earth needing to prove itself. About us needing to be partners rather than protector and protected. Today changed how the Empire views humanity. Already, I have received messages from dozens of member worlds expressing interest in establishing relations with Earth. Derek wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned back into his embrace with a contented sigh. Today changed how Earth views itself, too. We're not alone in the universe anymore, but we're also not helpless. That's a powerful combination. Isara turned in his arms, looking up at him with those luminous amber eyes. I was terrified today. Not for the battle, but at the thought that my desire to include Earth might have led to human casualties. The bond makes me protective of not just you, but your entire world. That's what love does, Derek said softly, brushing a strand of her flowing hair back. It expands your circle of concern. You love me, so you care about what I care about. And I love you, so your people's safety matters to me as much as my own. It was the first time he had said the words directly, though the bond had been carrying the truth for days. Isara's breath caught, and he felt a surge of joy through their connection that was almost overwhelming. I love you too, she whispered, rising to press her forehead against his. My star-crossed soldier, my impossible gift from the universe. They stood together in the starlight, a human military captain and an alien queen, bound by something that transcended biology and culture. Outside, Earth and the Zenari Empire took their first real steps toward partnership. Inside, two souls found the peace they had been searching for across light years and lifetimes. Princess Myra's holographic message earlier had been correct about one thing. The galaxy was watching Earth now, watching what happened when a young species bonded with an ancient empire. The story of Derek Stone and Queen Isara was just beginning, but it was already being told across 1,000 worlds, and in the quiet of their quarters, as Isara pulled Derek close and kissed him with a passion that still made his heart race. He realized that this was what destiny actually meant. Not fate that stripped away choice, but a path that called to the deepest truth of who you were, and asked if you were brave enough to walk it. He had answered yes. Earth had answered yes. And the universe, it seemed, was answering back with infinite possibilities.